Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Jonathan Sanders, co-founder and CEO at Light. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. I was checking out your landing page. I know we're going to talk to about stuff that's near and dear to my heart as a CFO. But first, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So Light is my third startup. Before going into the world of startup, I was working in finance in London for a number of years, but I thought I wanted to do something, wanted to build something for people that would make their life easier and better. So I joined an early stage startup at the time doing spend management. It was out of Denmark called Pleo. It was about 40 people back then. Now it's about 1,000. It's one of the unicorns out of Europe that we're proud about. And it was basically a company that prided itself on good design and using that to give a better product experience to its clients. And that's a lot of what we took with us. And after that, I co-founded a near unicorn called Junie. And after I sold it, I'd sort of thought that I would take a little bit of a break, but then I found that there was this area of finance that nobody had really tackled that I saw at both companies. Both times we went into multiple countries fairly quickly. And, everything on the sales side, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce that we were using, that scaled like beautifully across, multiple geographies. Everything we did on the product side, linear, GitHub, etc., worked well. But then it came to like the finance back office, and we were using, a combination of Zero and Visma and Fort Knox and spreadsheets. And at some point, both of those companies went into something called Oracle NetSuite, and it was like a long implementation. I thought somebody really needs to do something about this area. And so we decided to build what we call the Smart Financial Platform, which is basically our take of redefining ERP. Like, how can we build a better modern product that does the financial ledger and does that really well and has the end-to-end sort of product suite that you need in order to process the transactions going in on your AP, your AR, good integrations to Salesforce, good integrations to HubSpot, and also integrates to your global set of banks. So you can basically scale, seamlessly across multiple geographies. And that's when we founded Lights and we started upon this journey. And I remember when we started, most people, both customers and potential investors, thought that this was too hard of a journey to do, undertake. And here we are, almost 2 years into the journey. We are live with the first couple of clients, and we're serving them with multinational global accounting and accounts payable and receivables.
That's great. Well, appreciate that background. So, finance background, then got into the startup life. And yeah, accounting ERP is definitely an interesting space. So, yeah, let's dive a little bit more into Light and the products and services that you offer with Light. Yeah, so tell us a little bit more of what you're trying to solve there.
Yeah. So at its core, we built Light on a very modern database that leverages the full power of AWS. So it's cloud hosted. And by doing that, what we've been able to do on the ledger side, and sorry if this gets a bit technical, but what we've seen is that a lot of the products that were created 40, 30 years ago, whether Oracle or SAP, were fairly complicated in basically how their data model was set up in order to do the different accounting operations. We've been able to build something that is an order of magnitude simpler and an order of magnitude faster. Uh, and that is something that we can do because we're building it today on a very modern database architecture, but also build it on a very simple but very strong fundamental data model. So when we set out to build Light, we spoke to everybody from SAP to Oracle to Microsoft and Workday about, what was their experience. And some of them it was 40 years ago, and some of them it was 10 years ago on what they did well and what didn't go so well. And basically took all of that into building what we think is the best sort of fundamental accounting ledger that can handle global accounting, can handle multiple tax geographies. And that's what we use to build Light. And then on top of that, we built what we call applications. We built an accounts payable application. We built an accounts receivable application. And just to give you like a sense of what that does, it does the end-to-end processing. So you forward an invoice, we'll OCR the document, we will pre-process it, i.e. do the pre-accounting for you. You select your GL account, select your taxes, your custom dimensions, and then we integrate with Teams and Slack for the approvals. And then we execute the actual payments in your bank account directly. So we integrate with more than 500 banks. And then at the end of the payment cycle, we reconcile and close out the payments. And it's basically your multi-entity accounting and payments out of the box with one click.
And, we could talk for hours about this, but yeah. So what would it's an interesting space, right? Because, of course I focus on SaaS and do my tech stack survey each year. And in SaaS companies, typically it's QuickBooks, Zero, Sage,
Yeah.
and then NetSuite. As far as the top players, of course, a lot of other accounting solutions out there. And
Yeah.
first, what would you call yourself? Would you call yourself an ERP? Would you call yourself accounting software? How are you defining the product?
So the way we're thinking about it is we're calling it a financial platform. And we do that because the term ERP means too many different things to too many different people. To some people, it means we do inventory manufacturing. To other people, bill of materials, supply chain. And to other people, again, it means we do the core ledger. And what we do is we do the core ledger and then we do the applications that are around that: accounts receivables, accounts payables, paying your vendors, whether by bank or by card. Those things you can execute using Light. And then what we don't do is we don't do CRM, we don't do HRM. So we integrate with your Salesforce, your HubSpot, and we integrate to a wide range of HR companies. And we do that to help ultimately businesses with statutory reporting in the different geographies that they're in and the consolidated reporting that they need typically for management and for investor purposes.
Yeah, it's an interesting space, because of, at least, what I find is a lot of startups, on QBO Zero, and then look for that next
Yeah.
step. And NetSuite way out there, expensive, complicated, at least from my experience. And then
Yeah.
this void of all these apps who are then point solutions trying to extend the life of QBO and Zero, and kind of the interesting space in between. And then of course, like you
Yeah.
mentioned AP, AR, and of course a lot of point solutions trying to do that. So it sounds like, yeah, and I always thought as a CFO, it's like, hey, if we just have an easy general ledger, easy to way to make debits and credits, and have those, like you said, those apps that are then built on top of that ledger to, enhance that functionality. It sounds like you're
Yeah.
kind of trying to take the best of both worlds of just a nice, easy general ledger, plus thinking about all these point solutions, but just making those as modules within your product.
That's completely right. It's all about having a fast, scalable, and easy general ledger. And then it's about creating those point solutions that generate transactions that you need to post into your general ledger. And the thing that we then leverage is we can cross pollinate and we say, okay, the AI that runs in those applications, it understands your entity setup, it understands your chart of account, it understands all your taxes. And we use that information to pre-process all of the transaction on a line item basis and say, okay, this invoice that has these 4 line items, like 3 of them goes into, the marketing account, one goes into the advertising account, and it goes into these cost centers, etc. So that all ultimately what we're driving towards is like all of the data that comes in is posted into the GL is clean. And if you have clean data, and that was back to my background in finance, was mainly on the sort of analysis side, was a lot of the analysis job was basically to clean up data that wasn't clean in the beginning. And so if we can make it easier for you to post clean data into your ledger, make sure you do the right amortization, the right GL account, the right taxes, all of that across all of your global entities, the job of doing your monthly closing and doing your reporting will be a lot faster and a lot easier.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, one of my recent SaaS Metric School podcasts was ignore your accounting and it's going to cost you later. And like you
Yeah.
said, I spend a lot of time with SaaS clients just keep cleaning up their accounting foundation. And that's what I teach in my SaaS Metrics course. We have to start with our accounting foundation, right? That chart of accounts, revenue categories, cost center structure,
Yeah.
coding all expenses to a department level to create, in my world, the SaaS P&L. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, you know, financial platforms, accounting software, some are more prevalent in certain industries than other, like SAP, you hear a lot of say in manufacturing and other industries, so for Light, are you
Yeah.
going after any industry, or do you have specific
Yeah.
industries that you're targeting?
Great question. So Light is live today, but we are right now only catering to what is inside the broader sort of service category, specifically technology first companies, SaaS companies, marketplace companies, agencies, etc. Is a great fit with Light. And for that segment, it is mainly Europe, UK, and US that we cater for. So we do have some clients that might have a single entity in Singapore out of a group level of 6 or 7 entities, and then we handle that. But our main PR, technology companies across the sort of North American to European corridor. So it's typically a European company that's setting up in the US or a US company that's now coming into Europe to start selling. And they need something in order to support that from a consolidated reporting point of view, but also from operating across multiple geographies. And that's where we see that there's like a mismatch between what you can do with QBO, Zero, and the others. And basically, how we see it is that there's like a kind of like a gap between those players and SAP on the other side. And sort of NetSuite is sort of cramming its way into the middle of it, but it's not a easy or great implementation for any of the parties involved. So we're trying to bring something to market that is much easier. So that's why we guarantee to give you the implementation in 4 weeks to time to value. Otherwise, you will
Yeah.
get the implementation for free.
Oh, that's awesome. So industry services tech agencies, and then is this something if I'm starting out $1 that I can sign up for light, or is it better if I have a couple million in revenue? Where do you scale as far as revenue size with companies and who you're after?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can start with like fairly early, but it is better suited for you once you have a finance function somewhat established within your own organization. We do also partner with a company that can do bookkeeping for you. So we have services that we can offer our clients and say, okay, you're opening up in, let's call it Germany, and you don't have any expert on German bookkeeping, then we can help you with sort of temporary German bookkeeping and allow you to run the company in Germany. But as far as transactions goes, we scale basically very, very large when it comes to volumes. What you see is that, companies will go and need something else in QBO once they are becoming typically multinational. That'll be like a sticking point, multiple entities needing to consolidate. And then they'll choose like a NetSuite or maybe Microsoft sometimes here in Europe. And then again, they will need to switch once they become like a very large company because the transaction load doesn't scale anymore. And then they'll need an SAP or Fusion or something else. And when we stress test our system built on, as I said, a modern database in the cloud, we can scale to like billions of transactions and still do very complicated consolidated reporting in seconds. And that's one of the beautiful parts about really rethinking the ledger, building it much simpler. So you have those sort of primitives as your core foundation and makes it able for us to build a much better product experience on top of it because everything that happens now is instant, it's fast on this immutable ledger that we built.
Yeah, that's great. And the 4-week implementation is really fast. So love that. So let's get into a few stats here. So when I think you
Mhm.
mentioned a couple years ago, when you founded Light 2022 then?
Yeah, end of 2022.
O-
We're coming up towards 2 years at the end of this year.
Okay. And do you have a headquarters location or are you guys virtual?
We have a HQ here in London. We have entities, and we ourselves are a multi-entity business. So we have entities in US, UK, and Denmark.
Yeah, and then one thing I'm sure you're using your own software
Yep.
for accounting and so probably find a lot of things to improve when you just use your own product, which I love.
We
So
dog feed
yeah,
everything. So
yeah. And then what's your current team size?
yeah. So right now we are 20 people. It's primarily engineering and design. One of the things that we really focus on is high quality engineering and really high consumer grade quality design. So all of our designers come from the best agencies, Klarna, Spotify, some of the best consumer businesses we could find here in Europe. And then they done an amazing job of really rethinking the core UI and how you interface with your ERP or smart financial system.
Okay, great. Yeah, so about 20 staff. And then I know kind of early stages here. I don't know if you mentioned a couple customers, but anything you want to share around customer counts or revenue ranges right now?
Yeah, well, we got double-digit clients. I can't share any revenue
Mhm.
stats right now, but we got double-digit clients, and we're looking to onboard quite a few over the next couple of months. So we did an announcement a couple of weeks ago, and on the back of that, we've gotten some very good traction. And now we're working 7 days a week to onboard all of the wonderful clients that are coming in that we're partnering with to help with their multinational accounting, make life a little bit easier for them.
Definitely. So double digit customers, clients. And then tell us a little bit about your go to market motion. Obviously targeting controllers, CFOs, I'm guessing. And I've
Yeah,
switched accounting software, financial platforms also, have acquired companies and then moved them off QBO into our accounting software. Not an easy thing. Right now, you're not
no,
just switching accounting software, every year. So
no.
tell us a little bit how you're finding prospects and making that sale.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're trying to identify, when companies are starting to become multinational and they start to think about, okay, we're running on QBO or we're running on Zero, whatever SME solution you're running on, and we need to change in the next 3 to 6 to 12 months. It can vary quite a bit between the different companies, when they want to do that. But at that basically point, it's a time for them when they need to change into something else. So that's when we typically start to engage with customers. But then we work a lot with partners, whether outsource bookkeeping companies or implementation consultants, to allow our clients to have like an easy path from the existing platform into Lighten. We typically see that it's one of two ways. It's 50-50. I thought this was be more like 90-10, but it's more 50-50 QBO Zero and NetSuite rather than 90% QBO and Zero. So there seems to be a lot more appetite than I would initially thought for switching your Oracle instance out with something quicker.
Yeah, but then it's interesting, the whole multi-entity and consolidation that question comes up a lot actually in my student community in my metrics course of someone on say Zero or QBO, and then it's like, well, I've got an entity here, I need to bring my financials together, and then looking for another app to do that. So it's an interesting trigger point, that you're looking for those when they're kind of hitting that multinational stage.
It's when we see that they run into a lot of problems, and not just the consolidation, but it's also, then you have multiple instances that then need to integrate with, maybe you're running HR in Workday or in Ripley, and then you can scale that across all your countries. But then, you have this kind of like broken system that you have this one CRM and this one HR system, but you have multiple, maybe 3 or 4 different accounting systems that ideally would integrate seamlessly with the entire setup.
Yeah, and so let's switch the fundraising side and
Yeah.
talk a little bit of how much capital you raise, because I see this is not an, at least in my opinion, it seems like not an easy thing to solve for. You don't see too many accounting startups, and I have a lot of
No.
interaction with FP&A tools where they get into it. It's like, hey, this is seems easy, but this is more complex than I
Yeah.
thought.
Yes.
So let's talk. How much capital have you raised to date now?
Yeah. So we raised $13 million that we announced 6 weeks ago. And it's true that uh, basically what you need to do to create a great accounting product is you need to go and find those crazy engineers and designers that will find a joy out of reading about SAP, Workday, and Oracle on their Christmas Eve, which is what we've been doing internally. So we bought every single book on accounting. I'm a trained, financial analyst. I have my certifications, and we worked a lot with our customers, the big four partners, to stress test everything. But the most sort of helpful that we found is basically working with all of the engineers that has been part of either SAP or Workday to really sort of audit all of our decisions and make sure that we have a foundation that is scalable to handle the eventual complexities that will come in different situations.
Yeah, so 13 million raise looks like that round was characterized as a seed round. And it seems like, I talk to founders, ask, about their journey, start,
Yeah.
maybe bootstrapped and then raise or maybe needed to raise. So this seems like a product where it would be very difficult to bootstrap,
Yes.
where just the complexities.
Yes.
So did you know, say 2 years ago, when you had this concept idea of founding the company, that you were going to raise some capital?
Yes. I knew when we started it that this was a harder mission than some of the other like avenues that you could potentially pursue. And would require a lot of capital and quite a lot of upfront investment to get everything ready. So we knew in the beginning that this would require outside capital. And I think, we're probably not done with raising outside capital to build everything that we would like to build and give to our clients and to give them a better path. But I think it's one of the product areas where nothing has been really created or built in the last, call it 30 years. And it seems to be quite overdue.
Yeah, you see,
So,
yeah, occasionally I'll see, I talk to a lot, like FP&A is a hot space, but accounting occasionally you see some, but it looks like, very light applications, so simple
yeah,
invoicing,
yeah,
basic P&L, but not anything that really can handle companies that scale. So, when I talk to founders, sometimes they know just the problem that they're trying to solve is complex. It's going to need money, it's going to need
yeah,
capital. So any lessons there, for other founders who are maybe in that similar
Yeah,
situation where they have an
yeah,
idea, they
yeah,
know it's very complex. We're going to need a lot of people. We're going to need money. Any
yeah.
lessons learned in that process?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that you can do to any founder out there that might look into some very complicated area is one, of course, if you're lucky enough to be able to tap the market and raise the capital needed to get you there, that's great. But the other things that you can look at is partnering up with whoever is an expert in that field that might help you get there and start carving out a plan and a path towards, okay, I can't go, like the shortest path up the mountain is usually not the direct line because it's going to leave you just exhausted. So, like, how can you go indirectly up to the top when you want to climb Everest? And like, what sort of product can I get out to the market that will prove some parts of it, and I can still, charge revenue for? And so that depends a little bit on the area that you're looking at. And so when we started Light, we started out actually on the accounts payable side, and then we moved over into Ledger and AR. And so that's has been our journey. And through that, we learned a lot about all of the cost accounting, which is some of the most complex sides of accounting, because that's where you have the most variability in all of your line items. But that for us was a good path to learning a lot about how all of the existing systems do, and maybe some of the pitfalls or shortcomings that we saw and how we could do it better when we're rebuilding the ledger.
And you're a multi time founder. And do
Yeah.
you think for and this comes up a lot where just based on, if you founded multiple companies, had some nice exit, that gives you a lot of experience and reputation to go out and start another company and then raise a new
Yeah.
round of capital because they see your experience. So, in today's capital environment, if I'm, say, that first time founder and
Yeah.
I need a lot of money up front, is it just going to be hard or anything founders could do there if they're a first time founder with no experience?
Try to, I mean, one of the beautiful parts about doing something that is hard is if you write down what you're trying to solve and put it out there. If you go to Lightning, you can see we have a manifesto that basically try to explain why we're doing what we're doing and why we think now is the time, and how we think we could solve it. But I would encourage you to write down your thoughts. What is the problem we're solving, and like, why does it matter, and how the world will become better. Try to see if you can put it in front of some people and see, what happens. Probably if it's a hard problem that solves something that it's needed, you'll find somebody reaching out to you that might be able to help you.
Okay. Well, appreciate that guidance. And Jonathan, at this stage of your business, 2 years in, do you have a favorite number or metric that you're using to guide the business?
Yes, our favorite numbers is hours spent on month closing. So that's what we're looking for, and the number we're guiding it towards is getting it below one.
Okay. So you said hours spent, and
Yeah,
so below 1 hour to close the books.
1 hour to close your month end is what we're going for.
Well, that would be fantastic. Now,
That would be
of course, as a CFO, I've closed the books and usually 5 business days, is pretty
yeah.
nice, and that's a pretty fast turnaround. If you get it
Yeah,
even shorter, even better. But I mean, because typically, and this comes up a lot just in discussions for those who are not, say, familiar with the accounting process and closing the books, where it's like, yeah, you can't pull financials mid-month, right? Because I
yeah,
haven't, say, posted my rev rec entry or made those accruals or these journal
yeah.
entries that really close out the books. And again, we could talk a lot here on trying to get down to an hour close, but what are the big things that you think are necessary to actually have more of a real-time close?
So it basically goes back to the processes you described it. And for us, it's giving you an environment where you can seamlessly create automations that does the rubric posting, that understands, okay, this is coming in, this is a bit unexpected, this is what I would suggest that we do, and then does that for you 24/7 with infinite appetites, that never is tired, that is always patient for you. And that's one of the most beautiful things that we are looking into with the rise of AI, is how we built everything around that to basically help clients get a little bit out of operations, more into the strategic, guidance and analysis by allowing you to create automations at your fingertips. And That could be as easy as you do it once and then it learns, okay, next time if something similar happens, I would suggest, what Ben did last time, whether it's like a complicated revenue schedule for recognition or it's a journal entry for intercompany transfers, whatever it may be.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Well, I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to watch you guys and look
Yeah.
for those case studies. Yeah, I'll take a 1 day, well, 2 day close. I'll be happy with that. So Jonathan, really appreciate you sharing your experience as we wrap up. You're 2 years in. What's coming up next for Light?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're announcing actually today is how we're using those same principles. So we're for a completely new user interface. So now we're launching a new product. We call it Light Command Interface. And it's a little bit back to where accounting and accounting products were 30, 40 years ago. And what it enables you to do is to operate your entire ERP or financial platform system without using the mouse. You can use keyboards for absolutely everything. And you just write in what you want it to do, and it'll parse it and it'll suggest actions for you. And then you can modify, you can create journal entries, complicated transactions that involve multiple different postings just using natural language. So that is something that we're really excited about because accounting is a lot about how do we catch the corner cases? How do we make it easier for you? And how can we make a product that allows you to interface using your own language and say, like, this is what I'm trying to achieve and allow the product to help you get there.
Okay, that's exciting. So yeah, get rid of the mouse, a little bit easier, natural
Get rid of the
language.
mouse.
Yeah, yeah. I still use a mouse, but I know the big debates on keyboard shortcut about and mice.
Yeah.
But Jonathan, appreciate you coming on today, sharing your experience and journey with Light. If listeners would like to learn more, where should we send them online?
So go to light.inc. You can learn more about the Light Command interface and you can read our manifesto. And if this sounds interesting, you can sign up and we'll be in touch.
All right. Well, check out light.inc, which is light.inc to learn more. And again, Jonathan, appreciate your time and sharing your journey today.
Thanks so much for having me, Ben.